Oh, well, suddenly we're here. Good morning. Let's see who's here in the comments. Carrie, of course, is the first one to show up and say good morning. Morning, Carrie. And I guess we'll wait for the others to come in for getting at it, getting to it. I want to talk today. There's so many things I could talk about. And there's always a little bit of pressure to get the right subject and the thing to talk about and try and put it in a Christian perspective. And today's, I don't know, it might be a little bit roundabout, but I wanted to highlight specifically the Walmart stabbing incident. And if you caught that, there's Lucas. Morning. All right. Let me add this and then we'll take a look. This is a conversation with Megyn Kelly and our favorite guy, Victor Davis Hanson. And they're talking about this. And Megyn Kelly makes a couple good points here. And I'll just go ahead and put it up here.
Enter Derek Perry, not to be confused with Daniel Penny. The names are kind of similar. This is Derek Perry. He ran toward the suspect while others fled. Here's Derek on the screen for the listening audience. He does happen to be a black man. He ran toward the suspect while everyone else fled. I'd be fleeing too. I'd be terrified. He ran toward him. He's a Marine veteran. There you go. And in the video you're going to see here, he shouts at the attacker while brandishing a small handgun. Perry had a small handgun. Here he is. Watch this.
Drop it! Throw the knife that way! Throw it away! Throw it away! Hey, he hasn't dropped it. Put it down! Okay, I don't care. Lay down!
That's our hero, Derek Perry, yelling at him to drop the knife, to lay down, taking command of the situation. His own daughter wrote on Facebook, his heroism is a proud daughter moment for her. His daughter-in-law added, this veteran is a true hero. Those stories are amazing. And this is, look, you need these heroes. This is why we don't prosecute the Daniel Pennies, why we shouldn't, right? You need, in particular, American men who know what they're doing. Daniel Penny, too, was an armed forces veteran, to stand up when they see someone in trouble and to do the thing that 99% of the rest of us are too scared to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And once he did that, other people came to his aid because they wanted to participate in something noble. And I think that's going to, I think that it's an indication when you see that people, and that's unfortunate, have lost confidence in the ability of law enforcement. And it's not law enforcement.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what I wanted you to get out of that was a couple things Megyn Kelly mentioned, of course, and Victor mentioned also. First of all, she said, we need people to do this, and specifically American men. And then Carrie, used to be a day when I wouldn't think twice about helping. I'm not sure I would or could do now. Why wouldn't you? I'd be interested to know if it's just a physical ability idea or what. Because what Victor Davis Hanson said too was very good. He said other people, once he took over the situation, and the fact that he had the gun gave other people a lot more confidence. I mean, I would be a lot more confident in facing a guy in a knife if I either one had a gun, but if I didn't have a gun, if I was standing next to a former Marine who had a gun, who was taking charge like that. So, and I just wanted to, I won't show video of this, but it was in contrast to so many videos we've seen. And recently the video of the street beat down in Cincinnati, where those people were pretty mercilessly beaten while people joined in on the beating and other people just stood there and filmed it. And that's, a lot of people have commented on that these days, this maddening thing of when something is happening, instead of jumping in to assist or going to get help or calling the cops with your phone, people will stand there and they'll videotape it and not do a thing. And the only thing they're really doing is trying to get a better angle, so maybe it's help their, so they can post it and they get more views, or just this culture that doesn't value action. It values the image. It values the show. And, there's a sick, morbid curiosity for these kinds of things. But our society has gone away from the idea of intervening. Carrie? Physical, my brain says go, my body said no. I would still have backed up that Marine. Yeah. And there's another video. See if I can do this. I'm gonna try and show you this other thing. This happened years ago, about 15 years ago, but it's an interesting, it was the first time I can remember, or a time I could remember seeing something about, in 2011, there was a concert in Indianapolis, and I want to show you this just for the sake of the point. So it was a concert, and there was a big wind at this concert at the Indiana State Fair, at the State Fairgrounds. And then this happened.
At 8:49 p.m. Saturday, a 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gust toppled the roof and backdrop of the main stage here onto dozens of fans awaiting a country music concert. Onlookers rushed to the scene, lifting steel beams off of pinned down victims, but 5 were killed in the accident and 40 more were taken to local hospitals. Footage of the collapse.
Okay. If you, in that video, if you saw, so this, when there's this concert, they're waiting for the concert to start, and a big wind gust happened. You could see the stage was getting shaky and people were starting to move away. For some reason, some people didn't move away. They just, you don't figure things like that's going to fall on you, but it did. And if you saw, I remember at the time seeing all these people ran away as soon as the stage collapsed, and a few of them turned around and ran towards the stage because they knew people were under there. And as they did that, more and more people were given permission to run in. And that's why what Victor Davis Hanson said is that people, the guys that helped that were, in a way, the guy that helped the former Marine there, Derek Perry, and the guy Daniel Penny they were talking about is the guy who intervened on the subway in New York with another crazy homeless guy. And I don't remember if he ended up killing the guy or if he just ended up, I don't remember what happened to the guy who was threatening people. But Daniel Penny was arrested and they tried to prosecute him. I don't remember the result of that story, but he was given a lot of trouble because he intervened, and I think there was a racial component to it. But anyways, he was a hero that should have been celebrated. Instead, he was, for political purposes, he was arrested and they threatened to prosecute him, which he did nothing. The only difference between him and the guy, Derek Perry, was their race. And that was, maybe that's where the political motivation came in for Daniel Penny. So if anybody remembers what happened with him, chime in. But that's the point Megyn Kelly was making. We shouldn't arrest these people for stepping in. But I guess the difference would be that the perpetrator in this case, I think he finally gave it up when faced with 4 big guys, one guy with a gun. I think they finally disarmed him. So would I have stepped in, Carrie? Yeah, physically. I don't know. I typically am one to at least step forward And say what? Yeah, if you remember what happened with Daniel Penny, because he was the one that was arrested and being prosecuted. So I don't know what the result of that one was. That was about a year ago, it seems to me, or not long ago. But yeah, would you run? I typically have been one to step forward at least, but years ago, I was at a high school. I was a high school teacher, and there was a Christian club on campus that was being given a lot of trouble there was a block of teachers of a certain persuasion, certain orientation, that didn't like the fact that the Bible club was meeting in their building. They were singing songs and they were reading the Bible. And these people went to the principal, a very weak Christian man, who told the Christian club that they couldn't meet there anymore because they were making trouble. And so the Christian club asked the advisor of it was this lovely lady who was the copy machine. She ran the copy center. She wasn't even a teacher. And she was very upset about it. And she came to me and she said, "Can we meet in your room?" And I said, "Of course." And she said, "Can you lead the club?" And I said, "Of course," because I wasn't going to back down from these people. And the lady told me, she said, "Well, you're a protector." She said, I'm not one who ascribes to people's, I never get a vision from God or a word from God. There's a lot of people that do that. And she told me that God gave her a vision of me as the watchman on the wall who was watching over their club. And people came and gave me trouble. I said, "I don't care." I said, "We're going to meet. The door's going to be open." Because we're at the back of the school. Why do you care? Because I was in the back of the school. I was with the vocational ed teachers and we were the dregs of the school. So nobody really cared about us. Nobody came back there anyways, but this certain orientation of a person this power block of teachers wasn't going to have it. And I just said, I finally went to the principal. I gave the principal permission to use his backbone, put it that way. And he said, "No, they're going to meet." And I said, "We're going to have the door open. You're going to hear us singing. If you don't want to hear us singing, go into your room or whatever." And I said, "And you're welcome to." I also they're welcome to join us. And I forget, one of them got very, very irate at me and turned bright red in her face. But I'm like, "What? You're not going to intimidate us. We're going to meet. We have the right to meet. Why don't you come join us?" And she just got furious and walked away. And because she had never met any kind of resistance, and those kids had never had a protector. Now, I'm not physically a protector, and that's where I can get myself in trouble sometimes. But I have a protector's mindset. Okay, Daniel Penny. Protected people in the subway, arrested, one court case at the inn, and freed. Okay. Yeah. So, and the punishment is the process. The process is the punishment. I'm sorry. Why you say the punishment is the process? Yeah, the process that you go through is the punishment. That was Daniel Penny's punishment. There's no way that guy should have been arrested and prosecuted. Even if he was freed at the end, he still went through a trial. He was still given trouble for what he did. So, but that's what our society has come to. We saw that a lot with the BLM stuff, where there was a lot of video of, and all the supposedly mostly peaceful protests. You see a lot of videos of people, mostly in the Black community. It's not exclusive to them, but it seems that that's a culture that is developed. Why? Because it's very well known that in the Black culture, fathers have basically largely been absent. And as a young man, you have naturally you have a sense of your own power. As a young boy, boys, they play with guns, they play with knives, they play with swords. There's a natural testosterone fueled aggression in them and desire to use their power. And they need a father and they need other men in their lives to channel that for good and not for abuse and not for evil. So, and that's one of the roles of the father in raising a boy. Well, if you take that component out of an entire community, an entire society, you're going to have dysfunction, and you're going to have male aggression that isn't directed. It's just out there. And it's interesting. I married a widow, and she had a young son, and he was 8 years old, and he had lost his father when he was 5, and he had a lot of anger, and he was acting out. And so she had him in Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, which was a great thing. And he had men who were directing him, okay, directing that natural boy testosterone, developing aggression and everything. And they were pointing it towards camping. They were pointing it towards all the other things that at the time Cub Scouts did. But he also needed a father in the home. And there's many times when that aggression and that power use, that kind of misdirected use of power of his, I had to step in, and I had got permission from my wife and said, hey, I need to stop this. I need to put strength. This needs to hit strength. Okay. So, and I did that. And I told him, there were several times. One time he slammed his door. He got mad and slammed his door. I said, don't slam your door again. Otherwise you're going to lose it. You're going to lose your door. And he didn't believe me, and no one in the family believed me. And sure enough, a couple of nights later, he got mad, went up to his room, slammed his door. And, so I went to the garage, got a hammer and a screwdriver, just kind of, to his bewilderment and my wife and my daughter's bewilderment, I took his door, and he didn't have a door for a week. And he was so mad about it. I said, fine, be mad. You've got 10 minutes to be mad. And then you got to come down and be with the family and act like a civilized human being. So, and it wasn't anything other than that. This aggression, out of control aggression, needs to meet some kind of steel. It needs to meet some kind of barrier. And that's what fathers, that's what men in society, that's our role. That's our God-given role. And it goes back to the garden, where God set up Adam to watch over the garden. And from what I read, the Hebrew in that means to guard it, to protect it, to protect the tree of life, because there were forces, in creation, before creation, there was forces of evil. Lucifer had fallen well before that. And so God said to Adam, you are going to take care of my garden. You are going to protect my garden. You're going to watch my garden. So right away, there's this male this male gift, this male responsibility of watching and guarding and protecting that we're uniquely gifted for. We're created in the image of God, male and female were created. And men are the male manifestation of God's image. Women are the female manifestation of God's image. And that's what our calling is. And husbands are, in Ephesians, God definitely says, husbands, protect your wives, be the head of your household. And that's your role. Okay. Give your life for your wife. Okay. And all through the Old Testament, men are protecting. Men are the ones to go out and fight the wars. Nehemiah was the one to build the wall. Him and his men, half the men were working on the wall. The other half were guarding the wall. Okay. So you see this sense all through the Bible of God as protector. And that role has been God putting putting men as being protectors, and God has handed that role down to all of us. Okay. And one of the dysfunctions of our society, and you hear it all the time, is men are not willing to step forward and be protectors. Sometimes it's because of age. I'm past the time when I could be a protector. And again, my skill set never allowed me to be a physical protector. So now, even in my old age, I'm even less of that, but I'm actually in the process of working out. I've told you before about the situation here with my old church, kind of going pretty far left, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on my current church and all the other churches in the area that want to stand on God's word. And I'm trying to step forward and tell the staff of my church and the pastor of my church, hey, we need to come up with a way to handle this before it becomes a problem. I see this coming. I'm the watchman on the wall that's seeing this. And this is my way of protecting. At our church, we have every church service we have former cops and former Marines patrolling out in front of the church because they are the ones God set up to protect the church. And that's their role. And that's their form of worship. Okay. Physically protecting the church. And that's what we need. We need men physically protecting things. We need men taking stands morally, okay, and ethically. And just like I took a stand for the Bible club, at that school, we need to take a stand for the church and for our believers, our fellow believers. So, okay, Lucas, there's a special blessing for families living in spiritual alignment under Jesus Christ. The Father is the spiritual protector of the family. Yes, spiritual and physical. But yeah, there is that spiritual protection component. Absolutely. The father should submit to Jesus, with the wife submitting to the husband and the children submitting to the parents. Yeah. And women hate that word submission. And I even had a talk with our daughter once on it. She didn't like the idea of submission. And I said, well, do you know about the other half of that? The other half of the submission equation? She said, what's that? Well, the Bible does say, wives, submit to your husband, but what does it say before that? It says, husbands, love your wives and give yourself to them give your bodies up to them, give yourself up to them as Christ gave himself for the church. You're to love them as Christ gave them the church, being willing to sacrifice your whole life for them. And I asked her, I said, this was before she was married, I said, if you had a man who was willing to do that for you, who was willing to love you and give up his life for you, and you would still have a problem submitting to him, knowing that God wants you to. And she's like, I never thought of it that way. I'm like, of course you never thought of it that way, because we never teach it that way, right? Because God's prescribed role for men is not very politically correct. It's not very woke, and it's not very liked by those of us who've grown up in this feminist dominated society, put it that way. So Carrie, scratch, bite, kick, pull hair, do whatever it takes. Yeah. It changes a lot when you know what the Bible says. Yeah, and it's right there. It's right there for everybody to see. That the burden is really more on the man, more on the husband. I mean, that is, thank you. That's the key. I don't know. I'm not a woman, and I haven't. And I'm sure that the verse about wives submitting to the husband has been misused throughout the years, but I don't know how it's gone the other way. I don't know if the idea of a husband giving himself totally for his wife as Christ loved the church, loving her as Christ loved the church, giving his life for her. I don't know if that's been abused either, and if men have felt like they're under some unreasonable burden there too. That never comes up because men never do that. Men will never openly complain about that. They just won't do it. They'll just check out, which maybe that is what's happened, because a lot of men have checked out on that responsibility. Our society has more or less beaten that idea out of men, that they are to be the head of the household and they are to love their wives as Christ loved the church. That's a big burden, but it's also a huge calling. It's the ultimate calling. One of the ultimate callings is to be a husband that loves his wife and loves his family and gives himself like Christ gave himself for the church. That's huge responsibility, but it's also a huge blessing and responsibility. So, Gary, I'm not sure why it was not taught that way, because I could do a whole, obviously I got to do a whole one on this too. It's not taught that way. You're right. Because some things we'd rather not teach. It's easier just to complain about men not stepping up than to really challenge them that way. Okay. Lucas, I grew up without a father. He kicked me out when I was 11, and he's not a part of mine or my family's life. I'm kind of doing this blindly, but following the Bible for guidance. That's all you can do, Lucas. I mean, and then again, that's where the model gets broken. That's where the enemy comes in, that he attacks the family. He really does. And he attacks fathers. Because and that's the saying, it's this old trite saying, if you save a man, you save a family. I know so many women who go to church without their husbands, and very seldom do you see the children with the mother. I'm sure it happens. There are faithful Christian women who are really leading their families because out of necessity, and their children are following, but it's very difficult. But if you save a father, you will save that family, because instinctively, naturally, they look for the father to be that. And if you save men, you'll also save us. It's got to follow that if you save men, you'll save a society. Okay? Because men are lost. Our society's told them they're toxic, they're useless, until something like what happened at Walmart, or something that happened on the subway, and a guy like Derek Perry or a guy like Daniel Penny steps up and protects. And Derek Perry, we're celebrating. Daniel Penny, we persecuted. We can't persecute these men. We cannot beat down men when they want to step up and use their strength in a noble way and take on God's role as protector and defender. We have to encourage that. We absolutely have to. I was so encouraged when that lady told me that I was the watchman on the wall watching over them. I'm like, me? She goes, of course you. Don't you see it? I'm like, no, I don't, but I'll pray about it. And, it's funny. That has helped me so much with the way I approach things, understanding how God has gifted me. And again, now I'm seeing it, and I have the gift of discernment, and I'm seeing a lot of things happen around our little part of the world here, our little part of the body here. And it's really given me a burden to be that protector, even though I can't physically do it. I can do it verbally. I can do it, with coming up and supporting the people that are in power or that have the responsibility for their church. I can come alongside. So, I believe that women have beat that out of men. In a lot of ways, yeah. I mean, women are broken too. Women are like men. They're broken, and our society has broken them too. Believe me, our society has broken them. So, in today's society, exactly right. Oh, thank you, Carrie. It's one of the reasons I do this. It's one of the reasons I take the topics I do, and I do the takes I do. I just have this sense, and again, it goes back to the story of I told a couple weeks when I was talking to the staff member of the church I've been telling you about that has gone pretty much way to the left, and he's like, "How did you see it, Joel? How did you see it when none of us did?" And I'm like, "It was obvious," and he's like, "No, it wasn't. You saw it. We didn't." So there's that sense. That's the feedback I get. So, and like usual, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I guess that's what we're here for. So, but I have talked to Doug. I like Doug, and obviously Mike leading this network. So, but wow, it's past time. and that went really fast. So thanks for your input, guys. I appreciate it. That helps me immensely keeping the show going. So I got to cut out. I will be on tomorrow with Ben. So we'll see you then. Thanks for listening.